can see here that I'm logged into Vena and I have access to this Copilot role. And as Paul mentioned, this can also be accessed in Microsoft Teams. As a reminder, it's also governed by your Vena security profile. So if somebody only has access to a single entity or even a single product, they'd only be able to ask questions about that specific data point. And as Paul mentioned earlier, we've pre-trained the models with thousands of different FP&A questions. And there's actually a question bank with curated prompts that you can see here. So you have some ready-to-go prompts, or you can type in your own questions on the fly. Before we do that, I just want to set the scene a little bit. So if we think about a typical finance or business scenario, let's say we're having a meeting to perform a May reforecast of our company that manufactures electric bikes. So we're going to be looking at some data points, understanding data trends, and starting to strategize where we need to reallocate resources to ensure we're course correcting the business in order to meet targets. So going into the meeting, senior leadership only has access to a handful of reports. Now, before we begin updating the May reforecast, the leadership team may ask to see the breakdown of April revenue by product, including our top and bottom performers. So instead of finding and refreshing those reports manually, I can ask that question live in Copilot. So I can type my question in natural language. So what are my April revenues by product? And then the large language model, or the AI model that is sitting on top of your data, is going to be able to understand your question, but also your metadata. So your chart of accounts, your products, your customers. If I don't specify, it assumes a year. So in this example, it's using 2025, the current year. So again, it's going to be able to understand my natural language, relate it back to my data, and then pull out an answer. So here we can see it's come back with the April revenues by product, but now I have some follow-up questions. So I'm just going to copy paste those questions so you don't have to watch me typing it out. But here I've said, what are my bottom 50% of product revenues for April, and show the calculations. So we can tell Copilot, be brief, answer in 20 words, bring it out in a list format, all the things that you can do with a ChatGPT or Gemini type tool, we can do that here. So now we have that answer with all of that additional context around the calculations. And we can see it's identified the bottom or the lowest 3 products. And actually this one, the AMP off-roader, is the bottom performer. So now that we know that, we can focus on this particular product. So now we might want to ask Copilot, how did it do compared to last year? So I'm going to type in here or copy paste, what is the year-over-year change for that product in April 2025? Now, this could be the finance team or the sales operations team asking these questions, or you can give access to your end users. So instead of someone having to provide answers manually, Copilot can manage all of those transactional queries. And of course, that means you're freeing up time for more strategic work. So we can now see the prior year revenue, the current year revenue, the total difference, and we can see that as that year-over-year change as a percentage. So we had a significant drop in this AMP off-roader sales, this particular e-bike. So what we should do now is build a report to get more details on that breakdown. So typically what would happen now is someone on the team would go off, they'd get the data out, they'd shape a report manually, but because I'm using Vena Copilot, using our new reporting agent, I can ask it to do just that. So create a report for April revenue by product and by customer. So it's the same user interface, but now we can see those agentic capabilities that Paul mentioned earlier. In this case, we're guiding it to actually provide us with a downloadable report. So that's what's opening up here. It's opening up in Vena. So now what we can see is we have this revenue report, right, for April by customer and by product. And we can further modify this report using Vena's ad hoc feature, ad hoc reporting feature, which you can see here on the right-hand side. And we can also provide feedback to Copilot here in order to improve the future results. What we can see is this report has defaulted to the year 2025, and we're looking at actuals, which is great. But now we can do a little bit of cleanup on this report. So what we can see in the rows is that we're looking at one specific or one revenue account here. So what I'm going to do is drag revenue to the pages or the filters. And as I click on any dimension, I can start to browse the hierarchy. So these are all of my revenue accounts. We have some sort of subcategories there, and I'm going to select account 4000, which is my product revenue. So I'm sort of filtering on one specific account. And then I'm also going to change the department selection to non-specified department. So this is all of our revenue data that is not department specific. And I'll click refresh, and we'll see all of that updated information on the report. So this report is a great start, but maybe it's generated some additional questions. Maybe we're curious if there are any common trends in that AMP off-roader product. So of course we can go back to Copilot and ask those questions, but we can also modify the report here in a very flexible and efficient manner. So we know we want to focus on that AMP off-roader product. So I'm actually going to move product into the pages. And then you'll see that it automatically becomes a filter. So now I'm able to filter on that specific product in question. And now I want to do the same for entities. So I want it to be a filter that I'm able to select. So you can see it's automatically been created there. And I'm actually just going to select the US entity. Now, if we want to start to look at trends, if I come into the scenario, we might want to change that to the plan because now we're starting to look into the future. And then for the period, here we can select our bottom level of full year. So we're selecting all the months in the year. And of course, for the plan, we already have our month-to-date numbers that have been actualized. And you can see as I'm doing that slicing and dicing, it's updating that report with my changes on the fly. So again, if I click refresh, you'll see all that data is being pulled through. So now I can start to do, some standard formatting. This is just like Excel. So I might change the number format. I might actually want to include or insert a chart. So I'll do that. And now visually, I can start to see, or I have insight into my top customers. I'm also going to add some conditional formatting here because again, I want to start to identify the trends in my data. Right, so now I can see all the areas where we're performing sort of off trend. I can see that we're trending off of our target. So we need to make sure that we increase product sales for this specific product, which is our AMP off-roader, by at least 10% to hit our target. So now we might be asking, what are some strategies that we can deploy? So I'm going to go back into Copilot and ask what are some actions we can take to improve May to December revenue for that product based on the April performance. So we're using Copilot to generate reports, to interrogate the data in a meaningful way, but we can also use it to drive our strategic decisions and to improve the overall health of the business. So you can see here now that we have some actions that we can take. So maybe we've determined we can reallocate some advertising spend from an overperforming product to this underperforming product. And from there, I can even start to do what if modeling. So how would a 10% increase in May to December revenue for this product contribute to my gross margin in 2025? So again, from here, what we would do in practice is based on all this intelligent insight, we're now better equipped to update our May forecast in Vena for this particular product. And if you remember at the beginning of the demo, the scenario we wanted or that I highlighted was that we wanted to update our May reforecast, but to do some analysis before we do that. So again, in this scenario, we'd go back into Vena, update the reforecast. We'd then be able to refresh this ad hoc report and see the results of all those changes immediately. Just as a reminder, you can also drill down on any of the data in the ad hoc report. You can do an audit on a particular cell so you can see where that number is coming from, when it was last saved, by whom. And finally, if we need to prepare for a board meeting, we can ask Copilot to help us prepare for that. So what are some tricky questions the board may ask about Q1 revenue performance? Now, just as a reminder, this is all available in Microsoft Teams, so you can interact with Copilot and generate reports. You can collaborate on reports as well directly within Microsoft Teams. So just to summarize, everything you've seen here is what's available today in Vena. We have our analytics agent, we have our reporting agent, and coming later on this year is our planning agent. So that will allow you to do driver-based forecasting using Copilot in Excel. The drivers can, of course, be internal data, but it can also be using external factors like changes to national insurance or inflation. Now, your data will always stay within your environment, but Vena Copilot will be able to read external data sets, bring that in so you can run calculations and reforecast. Further on down the line, we're looking at our visualizations agent, where Copilot will be able to create dashboards and interactive visuals. So lots of interesting things to come. This is just the beginning, so stay tuned.